Welcome to MetalVice in 666. I'm your host, Brian, joined the other host,
Karen.
And for this episode, we are going to talk about Fire in the Mountains, particularly, or more specifically, the panels at Fire in the Mountains.
Yes. They call them workshops.
Yeah, see, I don't like that title because to me, a panel is like you show up and you listen to somebody talk, like a panel of people talk about a topic. A workshop is you build something or you work on something.
Yeah, I'm just saying. So if anybody goes to Fire in the Mountains in the future, these are the workshops.
Yeah, I've heard
that are in the morning.
I heard other people call them panels as well.
I did as well. I think
it's a misnamed thing. You should have had workshops and whatever. That's a different topic.
Yeah, I'm just saying if you're going to Fire in the Mountains, it's the workshops that they have listed.
And we've brought this up in the past a little bit, mostly with the last Milwaukee Metal Fest, where we saw the Josta podcast. And we were talking about how you don't necessarily see a whole lot of the like non-music sort of event type things happening at like festivals.
Yeah.
Every now and then you'll have like the outdoor seating where they're doing interviews and shit.
Yeah, that's true.
I think we brought that up during that episode, but that was sort of a thing we said for an improvement potentially for Milwaukee Metal Fest was if you're going to do more of these sort of non-music sort of panels or podcast type things, have a designated space for that. And this is sort of the first one we went to where they did have designated spaces for these workshops or panels, which was down by the lake. There were two stages. I can't remember what they called them.
Bear Woman and White Eagle.
Right. Really cool, amazing spots, like seeing the water, the lake in the background with the mountains in the background, and trees. Super awesome place to watch these panels.
When it was warm, we could stand in the water and watch the panels.
The morning panels, we did sort of bathe in the panels and whatnot.
Bathe in the lake, not the panels.
Yes. Bathe in the lake, listening to the panels as we did. And I think we're just going to talk about the couple that we saw. We didn't see too many of them.
We didn't, no. So I think we saw 4 total.
Probably, yeah.
And there was a lot, but there was a lot of overlap, and then also just timing-wise of getting down there, because generally what we did, just maybe this is for the full podcast, but whatever. But we would get up in the morning, about 9:30, 10, go to the lake to bathe, because that was our bath for the day.
There were no shower houses.
There was no showers or anything, so everybody was getting in the lake. So we would go in the lake, and then we would listen to whatever panel was happening, and then one day we stood and watched the next panel. So we saw 4 of them all together. I guess 3 individually, but both of us saw 1 individually.
Maybe even more, because we saw 2 of the high school panels. One
true.
about the high school program itself. One about the music video they did with Neurosis, I think it was. Yeah. There was the all-woman panel about claiming space in the scene. We caught the tail end of, I think, a storytelling panel, which I wish we would have been able to see all of that. We walked through another one where they were talking about the tribe losing their identity through Christianity, I think it was. I don't know what that was all about, but that one sounded really interesting.
Yeah, I wish we would have caught that whole
as we walked by. And then you went to music as a therapy.
Music and mental health or something?
Something like that, yeah.
Oh my gosh, we should know what this was.
And I went to the architect of an album, basically developing an album and whatnot.
Music as medicine.
Yeah.
And then you went to the architecture of an album.
Yes.
Because those were the overlapping times.
Yep.
So you were going to stand or listen to the music as medicine as well, but then you were like, I really want to hear this one. So
and honestly, I didn't really want to hear the music as a medicine one. That's not something I was really into, honestly, at the time. Amigo the Devil, I think, was one of the panelists for that, wasn't he?
Yes.
Which that would have been cool to see and hear. But that theme is I don't want to hear about this. But then seeing the architecture of an album is that seems really cool. The high school ones, they talked about the program they do for the high school kids. Basically, it's a class within the high school, the alternative school there, I think in Browning, where it's like a metal music class.
Music symposium.
Yeah, where it's they look at metal music and they look at the lyrics, they look at the art of the album, the liner notes or the liner art, music video art. They do a bunch of shit just all themed around metal, but they incorporate so many different subjects into it. The kids got to make an album, or not an album, but a song. I can't remember who came down and set up gear and they recorded the song.
Somebody from Neurosis, I think, set up.
Yeah.
I think that's Sorry, we heard a lot, but I think that somebody from Neurosis came in, recorded it over like 3-hour periods. Or
Like
something
they came down to that lake area
Yeah.
and set up all the gear, and they tear down. I think it was down at the lake.
I think so, yeah, because he said like right here.
Yeah.
So
Tear down the gear every day and come back the next day to
Mm-hmm.
set up. While the kids were doing that in the classroom, then the kids are recording. Like they had like everyone had like a phrase that they said that meant something to
Yep.
them about being, I'm assuming, being native and being from Browning and whatnot, and being from the Blackfeet tribe. And that was a really, really cool song. They ended up playing that
they
for
did,
us as
yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So they talked about that. They talked to the kids. It was kind of cool to hear like the kids who were in the class, like, this is one of my favorite classes. This class is awesome. I don't like metal, or I'm not into metal.
I'm not into metal music. Yeah,
One kid's like, I'm into the screamo or the emo music, like the pop punk
dad
stuff.
rock and emo music.
Yeah, somebody's like, I listen to dad rock.
And he's like Linkin Park.
Yeah.
It's like,
and
no.
Ozzy. It's like, but I guess it is dad rock now. I don't know.
Yeah.
They also talked to them the next day about the music video they made for Neurosis. I still need to go check out
I know,
that
we
video.
do. We need to go see it, yeah.
Because they're like, this kid was an actor, this kid did makeup, this kid did, the sound effects and whatnot. And that's another part of the class is they're learning how to do like different trades and whatnot, like in terms of like running the sound engineer boards and whatnot. Sounds like a really, really fucking cool class. I wish I had this in my class.
I know, listening to it, it's like, this would have been
school.
really cool to like, start the class. And the teacher is like, started, like they came up with the idea of like, we need something to get people or get the kids engaged, and this is what they came up with.
And they're like, there's no way our superintendent's going to let us do this. And we've pitched it, and they're like, yeah, that sounds like an awesome class.
Sounds like they've done it 2 years in a row now.
Yes, the last 2 years.
The last 2 years, and they're doing it again next year, it sounds like. So I'm assuming as long as kids keep going through the class, they will keep allowing it.
I think it's great because, I mean, it melds so many different subjects. Like we talked about, you have literary, by reading, like, basically poetry. The lyrics are poetry.
And I did that in school.
Yeah.
Like we read lyrics as poetry.
You're evaluating sort of a piece of art in terms of like a music video and deconstructing it. They said they go to live shows and they talk about that, or they watch live shows.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think
the teachers were going to live shows and then they would talk about it the next day.
Maybe, or watching them on YouTube or
yeah,
something, or streaming service and whatnot. We talked about that. Like Quello has a bunch of live shows. And that's all our podcast is talking about live shows. But it made me think back in high school of like, I wish I would have had something like this because I was like one of 2 metalheads in the entire school where it's like, it would have been cool to have a larger community.
Yeah.
And this town's so small and they have so many people who are into this scene, which is so fucking awesome.
Yeah. One kid said like, oh, I wasn't friends with all these people, but now I'm friends with them because I was in this class or whatever. So it is, I mean, thinking back to high school, I didn't have very many friends. And it's like, if I had a group of people who were doing something like-minded that I'm into as well, then you kind of can come together and become friends.
Yeah, for sure. So those were 2 panels we went to. The women's panel, like the all-women panel, we did a separate 666 on one sort of comment one of the panelists made. I don't know when that's going up compared to this, but that's going to be relatively close. And then the 2 panels we did separately, the music as medicine and the architecture of an album.
Yeah. We also went to the missing and murdered Indigenous people panel as well.
Yes. That was a lot of fun as well.
Not fun.
Fun in
it was informational.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I use fun as a way to say I really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
I had a fun time. It was a very heavy topic.
Yes.
But I enjoy learning about those things and becoming more aware about those
It was
things.
very informational, and it is something that I think everybody should look into it more and, help out or, give credence to the missing. And is that the right word?
I don't know if that's the right word or not. It might be. English is hard sometimes.
Yeah. But be aware of missing and murdered Indigenous people and the fight that their families have to give.
Yeah, there's a lot of very useful information in that panel as well. And again, sorry to say fun, but like,
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
it was informational. We were engaged in the information that was given.
Learning about sort of how the inner workings sort of the tribe and jurisdictionally how that works and whatnot, and sort of the hope some of them have. Or there were 2 women on that panel. One younger, she seemed very hopeful for the future.
Yeah.
The other woman was a little bit older. She seemed more like, I don't see any hope. Like, this is, we've seen this before. And like, she does seem hopeful as well. But at the same time, she's sort of like, I know how the world works. And
Yeah.
we need to do this ourselves type thing. That's how I took it anyway.
It is. Yeah. Well, yeah. Just being impacted by people who were murdered or are missing and haven't been found yet is a heavy topic.
Yeah.
So.
Also, that's where you learned about the red handprint.
Yes.
The moderator was in the what was the band he was in?
Panoka.
Panoka, yes.
I might not be saying that right, but it's Ponoka.
I think it's Panoka, yeah. And I think it was him and his brother or his cousin were in the band together, just the two of them.
Cousin, I believe.
But they had like red handprints on their mouths, and I didn't know what that meant.
No.
I thought it was like because right before that we saw the powwow, and a lot of the powwows and the dances they talked about were like, this is the dance that we would have when the warriors came back to the tribe after a successful warrior thing or hunt or
women
something.
dancing before to send off
Yeah.
the warriors. Yeah.
So I assumed it was like a warrior thing because the drummer came out, the moderator came out with like the headdress on, and I thought it was like a sign of like their tribe and like a warrior symbol for them. I didn't realize it was a representation of Indians being silenced, and it's a red handprint to represent their silence, that they've been sort of been muzzled sort of by white society. Of like, you're not talking about this,
or being silenced permanently by losing your life.
Right.
So
learning about that and what that actually meant was super awesome to learn about.
Yeah. There was there was a lot that was very interesting. There was a lot of panels that I just looked back a little bit ago on the panels and like, oh, that would have probably been interesting to, go to sort of thing. So
I was talking to some people and they're like, it would have been really cool if they recorded all the panels.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'd pay like $20-$30 to have access to the recordings of the panels, or if they just even threw them up on YouTube, I would watch those all the time. Like, I wish they would have done something like that.
Yeah, especially to give the information out for some of the indigenous stuff that people aren't necessarily aware of. Especially being in Chicago, we don't really talk about it, or like even Iowa, you don't really talk about the indigenous population, where out west I feel like it's maybe more prevalent.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's the same as it is in Iowa. That's sort of like
like you're so isolated,
you go do your thing, I'm not even gonna think about you, because like Iowa, we have tribes as well and native land there as well, and like again, it's sort of just a second thought. Growing up, it always was like you knew Meskwaki had the casino because it's Indian land, but like outside of that, like you don't really think about it growing up. And I have to be honest, before going to the Blackfeet country, like, this has nothing to do with the panels or anything, but I had this idea of reservations being like a compound. I don't know why. Compound.
Like it was like a community with like walls around it or something like that. Like a compound.
Gotcha.
Not like
a gated community type thing.
Yeah. That's what I've always thought about. And I don't know why but it's not. It's not like, it's just open land. In Montana anyways, the Blackfeet was open land.
Moving on real quick, we've been talking about this for a while. Let's talk about the last two panels real quickly. Music as medicine. Why don't you talk about that for a little bit, and I'll talk about the architecture.
For the music as medicine, going into it, I wanted more using metal music as like a therapy or like a calming mechanism, that sort of thing. And part of it was that, but a lot of it was asking the panelists to, give the time that they first heard metal music. Okay. And then it was a song that has helped you or something like that. So, it was kind of that aspect of it, but I guess going into it, I wanted more use music or live music or making music or whatever as your therapy. And nobody really went into that, or that's not the direction that it went. Not saying I was disappointed about the direction, because it was very informative and stuff, but it just wasn't exactly how I use music is different than how they presented it, which I think is a wonderful thing, that everybody kind of had their own perspective on how music or metal music was part of their life, or how they got into it, or how it's helped them, or, and there was a lot of talk of, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for music. Yeah. Not necessarily metal music, but just music in general.
I did hear people throughout the rest of the day that day talking about like, oh, somebody brought up this band or somebody brought up this music. And they're like, but nobody said anything about Led Zeppelin, or nobody said anything about XYZ band.
Yeah.
So that was kind of, I liked hearing that while we were like standing in line for lunch and whatnot, of people being like, those people are clearly bringing up the bands and the music that means a lot to them and has gotten them through tough times. it's just kind of funny. Like, why didn't other people get through the same tough times that I got through with the same music?
Yeah. It was interesting that I think 3 of the 4 panelists said Metallica was their gateway.
That was my gateway.
It was.
So interesting. All right.
So, but then they said early Metallica before it got bad.
They can't do it. They can do bad. They can.
Yeah.
They've got a one-way ticket. They're always good in my eyes because they were my gateway into the scene.
I understand. Yeah.
I've brought that up a lot. Yeah. The anatomy or the architecture one was sort of from the producer's eye. I was hoping it would talk about, here's where you put this type of song. Like if you're gonna put a ballad, here's where it should fall in the album. You're not gonna start your album with a ballad. You always put your what you think is going to be your biggest single as number 1 or number 2. Like I wanted to hear about that, but it was more about producing and what's the process you go through. They talked about like they were talking about how like once they started to produce and learn the tricks and learn how things are done, when they hear music, they can't turn the analytical side of their brain off. So they're always tearing apart the song when they hear it. Like, oh, you forgot to do a fade in here. Oh, you cut this off just a little too much.
I see.
And they're talking about like when they're editing, they can zoom in the waveforms and they can take off the imperfections to try to make it more perfect. I wanted to ask and I didn't ask, but like, does that mean you prefer live shows because you don't, does that turn your analytical brain off because it's live and there's imperfections everywhere and you can't always reproduce what's on the album? Like, but I didn't ask that. They also talked about how like, how do you know what gear to use? And one of the guys was like, I fucking hate Steely Dan because they're fucking nerds. And they go into like, I use this thing because it has, 1% less decibels picked up or like something like that. It's like, I don't give a shit about that. I put the mic somewhere and if it sounds good, I do that.
Yeah. Kind of like the Blood Incantation.
Yeah. Yes.
Documentary that we went to see, and they're like, oh, this particular machine was used on this album in this way. And we're like, who cares? Like, does it sound cool?
Right. Exactly.
I mean, everybody has their own nerdy side of it.
But the producer dude was like, the producers are like, you go for what sounds good. You don't know what's going to sound. You could use trial and error. You figure it out. They talked about doing, using samples of like drum beats. So like hear the snare or something. And then you can piece it together as you go to make the song better, perfect. And one producer is like, honestly, what I do is I do that, but I don't do it. I have the drummer, for instance, go up there and I have him play every single drum or cymbal individually, and then I have them playing it. So then I can piece it together using their own sound and not just a stock sound. So
yeah, oh, that's cool.
And somebody was like, that's a really, really good idea. Another time he brought up like in his studio, he hates the hum. Like if you can hear a hum from an amp or something, he hates that. So that's like the hill, his Vietnam that he's going to die on type thing is like, I'm going to try to do everything I can. And every now and then the amps will pick up like a radio frequency or something. And there was one time they were recording a song and they also said they like to have the whole band play together at once instead of doing every band piecemeal or member piecemeal. And they were I can't remember what song. I wish I could remember what this was, but it was, they were playing the track and there's a part where it goes very lull, like quiet and gets like low and steady and whatnot. And then like the drop sort of happens and it picks back up tempo and pace and gets louder again and whatnot. And right at that moment, it got low and quiet. The amp picked up a radio frequency and there was like a phrase that the DJ was saying over the thing. I can't remember what it was that he said. Something like the world's on fire or the world's about to burn or something like that. Something along those lines. And then as soon as it got lull, the dude said that, it picked up right afterwards, just as it was supposed to be there. They left it in. The band still has, they like t-shirts with that phrase on the back of it.
Wow.
And they're like, it was a mistake that shouldn't have happened, but it did. And it was like the perfect mistake that happened. And like, good thing it wasn't like Radio Disney that came over the frequencies at that time. It was the perfect little thing that popped in. So it was a really good panel as well. I really enjoyed that one. So I personally, I'm glad I went to that one instead of the music one, medicine.
Yeah. I did think about halfway through the music as medicine about leaving just because I was like, this isn't really what I wanted, but I stuck around and listened to the whole thing.
Yeah.
So
All in all, though, it was really kind of cool and interesting to see a festival have like these panels, and have like the band members and the tribe come and speak to us and present this information and tell these stories and whatnot. So it was really, really cool and unique to this festival that, I don't know, it was just a fun thing for sure. And those were just a handful of them that we saw. We rambled a little bit too long here. But yeah, it was, we don't get that experience unless you go see live music. So go check out live music.
Bye.